Hello everyone. In this guide, we will talk about Farming Simulator 25 graphics settings, and I will show you how to set them up to make your game look good while maintaining high FPS. To adjust the graphics settings, go to Options, and then go to the second tab here, and this will be our starting point. I highly recommend setting this to high, and then adjust few settings as I will show you. The option for screen resolution should match what your screen can do. So for example, my screen by default is 1080, and so I will select 1080 here. And I also like turning VSync on because I find that it prevents some of the tearing and stuttering. Frame limit here can be however you want. You can go as low as 30 or you can go as high as 240. Window mode actually does make a little bit of a difference. Full screen and exclusive full screen both will give you a little bit of a bump in terms of performance and graphics, while keeping it on windowed is going to reduce that a little. So only set to windowed if you find yourself alt-tabbing very often. Otherwise, keep it on full screen if possible. And then below here, you will find advanced graphic settings. The first thing we want here is to adjust all of these settings under object draw distance and make them 100%. This basically controls the quality of the stuff you see around you. The higher this value will be, the more details you will see objects from a distance. And since most of your focus will be on the field you are currently working on, the game will be working hard in the background to provide more details for stuff you may not see that much anyways. Next, we will look at the render quality settings. There are some settings here that are very important and have a big impact. The first one is screen space shading rate. I always keep it off because if I change to anything else, including quality, I find that it messes with the graphics inside the game, and very often the game will be completely dark for me. Reflections mainly affect things like water surface, which is not something we will be looking at most of the time. And if you turn it off, this will give you a decent bump in the performance. Same goes for shadows here. I also turn it off for the same reason. You can leave the ambient occlusion at high, but the atmosphere quality and volumetric fog both will have big impact. Atmosphere quality is mainly going to affect the sky and clouds. So you can set this to high, but if you still found the performance not high enough, you can try going even lower. Volumetric fog will control the quality of the fog, which in my opinion does not make a huge difference in how the game looks, but it does have a big impact on performance. So I recommend setting it to low. I turn cloud shadows off because generally speaking, shadows always have big impact. And if you turn this on, this will also have an effect over the shadows in places you may not even see. And the game will be working hard in the background to provide shadows in places you may not even look at. Terrain quality, this is pretty straightforward. This is a terrain for the fields and roads and such, and so I like to turn this very high. Same goes for texture. These settings will actually make the game look a little better. This texture filtering option also have a big impact. You can go 4x or 8x and this will still make the game look good while not taking a big chunk of performance away. All the options here in light quality will have a big impact on the performance in general. Starting with soft shadows, I actually like to turn this option completely off because when I turn it on, I notice that there is a lot more flickering and stuttering in the game. So I always try to keep it off to avoid that. Shadow distance quality, I set it to low because this will only affect the quality of the shadows for things that are far away. So that's again things you may not even notice or look at. You can leave light quality and shadow quality to high, but if you notice that your performance is still not good enough, you can lower these values. I turn lens flare quality off because I don't like lens flare in general. Shadow map filtering is an option that will have a big impact on your performance. And I noticed that when I choose it at low, it will improve the performance by a decent amount. From the options under the settings section, tire tracks will be the one that will control the ground deformation. So as you move with your tractor on the field and such, it will leave track marks. The higher this value is, the more detailed and the longer this will stay. And if you make this something high, like for example going all the way up to 400, this can affect the performance quite a bit. Shadow lights and mirrors I always keep as 3. And for the field of view, these are my preferred values, but you can change it to however you want. Foliage shadow, I also keep it on. This will control shadows from things like your crops, the trees and such. But if you are struggling with performance and you need even higher FPS, you can turn it off and this will give you a little more. So now let's look at some gameplay footage together and see what the game looks like. One thing to keep in mind is, the first time you will load back into the game, especially if you have changed a lot of settings, you will notice there will be a lot of stuttering going on because the game will still be rendering things at the qualities and the settings you choose for the first time. But after a few minutes, when the game is done rendering the details that you are looking at, the stuttering should get much better. You will also notice on your screen that depending on where we are looking at, the FPS will drop or it will go higher. And that's because some areas of the game will have more details than others. However, as you can see, even in areas where there are a lot of details, our FPS did not drop below 90, which I think is very acceptable and not bad at all. And as you can see, the game does not look bad at all. It still looks very decent, and you can still enjoy what the graphics look like. If you found this guide helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel to see more guides for Farming Simulator 25. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next guide.